Kaepernick Scrawls disgusting message inside his military helmet, now he might lose his Army career. Spencer Rapone, a United States Army infantry officer, has created a firestorm on the internet after tweeting photos of himself in his West Point graduation uniform wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt with the words "Communism will win" scribbled on his cover. The tweet also included the #Veterans for Kaepernick, a reference to the recently disgraced former 49ers quarterback who no one wants to hire. Spencer Rapone has a long and documented history on social media subscribing and espousing to communist propaganda and beliefs. Being a communist in America is not a crime, and it is something protected under the First Amendment. However, Spencer Rapone is a United States Army infantry officer in charge of leading men and women into battle, so the rules for him and other military members are different. One various Twitter user, Jeff Martin, pointed out that West Point cadets fall under the purview of the Department of Defense, stating, "West Point cadets are under contract with the DoD. This is a punishable offense under the UCMJ." Making political statements while in uniform. Other Twitter users were quick to tag President Trump with Mr. Rapone's pictures to ensure Secretary James Mattis would deal with the matter accordingly. Going back to January of this year, one can see Spencer Rapone in a series of photographs on Twitter promoting communism. Despite the fact that these photos do not show him in a military uniform, he was still a cadet at West Point and still subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. In one particular photo, however, Spencer Rapone posted a picture of his Democratic Socialists of America membership card next to a U.S. Army uniform. This is also a violation of the UCMJ. The photos, the communist sentiment, and stupidity displayed by Spencer Rapone are all real. This man's behavior should seriously concern officials in the Department of Defense, as this is a man who will have the lives of soldiers in his hands. As someone who served under some wonderful U.S. Army infantry officers, if this guy was assigned as my lieutenant, I'd tell him to go pound sand with an e-tool. After his disgusting display in military uniform and supporting communism, how can he effectively lead soldiers? Many of the non-commissioned officers I had the pleasure of working with during the tenure of my military service would be inclined to push this guy off a cliff. My NCOs were old school, think R. Lee Ermey from the movie Full Metal Jacket, and you'll understand. For civilians who may not understand, when someone goes into the military, some constitutional rights are not afforded. As an example, while I was in the United States Army, even if I was not in uniform, I'm not allowed to openly criticize the President of the United States. Further, it is against the rules to promote any political views while in uniform, and doing so can land you in the commander's office quick with an Article 15 and possible court-martial proceedings. When an individual joins the military or goes into a military academy like West Point, they are informed of these rules and what the UCMJ is and how it applies. Spencer Rapone was and is fully aware of the UCMJ and how it applies to him. Nonetheless, he decided to violate the UCMJ, and should be promptly kicked out of the United States Army with a dishonorable discharge. The sad part about this is that Spencer Rapone took up a spot in the prestigious West Point Military Academy from some other patriotic American who would not disgrace the uniform by wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt. How Spencer Rapone even got into West Point with his pro-commie background is mind-boggling. Spencer Rapone is the poster child of everything wrong with the left and was somehow allowed to infect the officer ranks of the United States Army. He is a self-entitled beta male who subscribes to communism, without understanding it, and has jumped on the anti-American bandwagon because it is the cool thing to do now if you are a liberal. This sorry excuse for a United States infantry officer needs to be taught a lesson, and I'm sure he will be. That disgusting things he has posted online are not going away, and it is not something Secretary Mattis can ignore.